Chapter 26. The Problem of Mind. He builded better than he knew, the conscious stone to beauty grew. Emerson. Plato likens man's mind to a charioteer driving two horses, one black and fractious, ever pulling downward, the other white in wing, striving heavenward, and it takes a skillful driver to keep such a team pulling together. Until man's conscious and subconscious minds are synchronized or made to pull together, his word is powerless to change the evil effects in his life. He that wavereth is like a wave on the sea, driven by the wind and tossed. Let not that man think that he shall receive anything from the Lord. There is no limitation upon the demonstration that any man can make, but the outcome of his prayer depends upon his subjective embodiment or realization of the word which he speaks. The answer will always be proportionate to the soul's acquiescence to the statement of the lips. The solution to every problem is contained in the problem. The answer comes out of the problem. God is in man. Life is in man. There is a principle, and we must cooperate with it in the way it works. The principle does not put God into man, but helps him to express that which is already there. One does not go to a music teacher to have music put into him, but to have it drawn out. Jesus said, "According to your faith be it done unto you." God will give to us as much as we can consciously receive, but we can only receive as much as our mental equivalent or belief allows. The one using the principle must become the embodiment of it. When a prayer is answered, it is because the man praying has moved himself into a right relationship with principle, and because his subjective mind accepts what his objective mind decrees. When faith touches spirit, the principle responds. The whole purpose of prayer is to cause the subjective mind to believe. The prayer does not change God, but the mind of the one praying. If the conscious mind believes and the subconscious mind denies, it is a house consciousness divided against itself. There must be both recognition and realization before there can be a revelation. God is the gift, the giver and the receiver. We do not have to ask God to be God. God is God, life is life, and truth is truth. Jesus said, "As you believe, know the truth, it shall be done unto you." The principle does to each one of us and gives to each one of us, not as we think, but as we believe and know. To correlate the twofold mind, then, we must have both belief and the embodiment of the belief. When there is no longer anything in us which denies our word, then the two minds may be said to be working in perfect harmony. At first, the subconscious mind is very much like an unruly child. It must be taught to obey. It must understand that you mean what you say. It must be so convinced of your statement that contradiction is no longer possible. Having no reasoning power of its own, the subconscious mind is even more credulous than a child. It is dependent at all times upon your direction and command. If you are firm and steadfast in your position, you are self-convinced, and give your subconscious mind a proper pattern or idea from which to work, it will heal the body, solve problems, and work out any ideas to be developed. There is, of course, but one mind, but like the body it has various functions. All mind is one mind, and yet it is the use of mind that determines what a man's life is to be. The function of the conscious or objective mind is to choose what it will have. The function of the subconscious mind is to accept the idea and give it form. If it does not accept the idea, then the prayer is not answered. It becomes clouds without rain. If the man who makes the prayer wavers, the subconscious mind will waver also. Jesus said, "Ye ask and receive, not because ye ask amiss." Most of our prayers, treatments, and declarations are made in the upper mind, which explains why the results of our work are so pathetically small. Failing to touch reality, they do not come to birth. Out of the heart are the issues of life, and unless our prayer gets down into the soul, subjective mind, it is impossible for God to act upon it. Our soul being the connecting link between the conscious and the superconscious or divine mind. The first works voluntarily, the second automatically. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. Finally, the fundamental need in practice is to have the consciousness or capacity to receive. We should pray less for things and more for the ability to be receptive to the blessing of God. As we increase our state of awareness, we increase our capacity to be more receptive to the health, substance, life, and power of God. Say many times a day with deep feeling and in perfect faith, I know that my subconscious mind receives my word and acts upon it. Chapter 27. Clearing the Mind. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringeth into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things that are not seen are eternal. The work on the divine basis one must put spirit first, in the beginning God. The command to put things first is generally disregarded by the mind that seeks only loaves and fishes, tries to save its life and have it too. It tries to heal the body while believing it is sick. Judging from appearances, it knows only what is happening in the outer world. It tries to do the works of Jesus Christ without possessing the consciousness for which they stand. Leave all tears away from man everything that he formerly knew of himself, everything in the body of thought which knows both good and evil. As long as the consciousness of evil remains, evil must be expressed, whether it be injustice, disease, poverty, or death. Until the world of appearance has been completely dissolved, man is not ready to step into the new dimension, consciousness of Jesus Christ, which is unconditioned, unlimited, and unrelated. How can we see man as perfect if we are seeing him at the same time as sick, sinful, or dying? In my Father's house are many mansions, or states of consciousness. Jesus said nothing about preserving the old personality and body, which is no longer a fit instrument for the soul. Lose it and let it go, he said, and seek those things which are above. Enter into a new state of consciousness where all things automatically become new. This is, present tense, life eternal, to know me. To know me is to have the capacity to do all things which are impossible before, whereas before I was blind, now I see. If we examine carefully the states of being in a previous study, we shall see that every one of them is above the realm of things. They represent states or qualities of consciousness which have no association with anything in the world of effects. Every one of them is a spiritual fact or state of divine being eternally available and accessible to every man. As we dwell in them from day to day, they will gradually form in us a consciousness and body which they represent. We shall remake our consciousness of the world. We say glibly that God is spirit, but it is a known fact that God cannot be spirit to us until our conception of the world is spiritual. In other words, we cannot know God as spirit as long as we are knowing or feeling an opposite which is designated as matter. Either God is spirit or he is matter. He cannot be both. There is much work to be done in clearing the subconscious mind of its false beliefs, preconceived ideas, and imperfect judgments, but he taketh away the first that he may establish the second. He must increase, but I must decrease. There is no peace until the old errors are turned out, and the soul is emptied of its belief in the experience of the senses. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. To the pure all things are pure. Out of purity comes peace. Out of peace comes poise. Out of poise comes power. Out of power comes plenty, and out of plenty comes perfection. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. The states of being are not states of having something we did not formerly possess. They are states of being. If two, conscious and subconscious minds, shall agree touching any point, perfect correlation between the two, shall be established on the earth. Perfect agreement with spirit is to have everything supplied at the right time. That which ought to be is. Therefore let us rest. Chapter 28. Educating the mind. Spirit is the great educator which quickened man's mind to receive and accept as his own the divine attributes or modes of being. The most effectual way to break up sub-spiritual states of consciousness is to first determine what we will recognize as reality or truth. We must have a standard, the highest possible, and abide by it in all our dealings with the world. Remembering that conditions are crystallized by habitual mental states and feelings, we must train ourselves to think affirmatively and positively. Healing does not depend upon what God may or may not do for us, but upon our ability to cooperate with the law that is already in operation. Adjustments must be made from our own position in relation to that which is perpetually good and perfect. We must first deny all the material conceptions by separating them from the believer. We must supplant the old beliefs with new and better ones. We must admit only those concepts which are true or in harmony with Christ. Our choice is between Christ and chaos, between peace and conflict, between divine order and confusion. We are punished by our ignorance and not for our sins. As we gradually deny and break down the old ways of thinking and feeling, they will atrophy from want of use. As we bring the mind under its spiritual dominion, the senses will cease to bring evil into our lives. When we are sure that we are divine instead of human, then our world will be a much better place to live in. We must stop pouring metaphysical platitudes into the shallow depth of our objective minds and address ourselves to the more serious and important business of evoking or drawing out the realities that are already lying dormant and inactive within us. The word education is from the Latin educio, which means to lead out, not to pour in. The education that results in complete living is the only one worthy of our consideration. To acknowledge God in all our ways is to come into a consciousness of a new state of being. Regeneration begins when we are rightly related to those qualities of mind which represent God or the Christ self in us. The conscious tuning out of negative beliefs. The ideal of spiritual unfoldment is to have such a deep consciousness of the presence of God that there is no longer any response to negative suggestion. We must develop a new way of thinking, feeling, and seeing. We already have all the faculties by which to realize the Spirit objectively, but we must use them toward that end. If we objectively believe that God is all, then we must stay our minds upon the fact until our consciousness becomes all good. God hath made man perfect. Within the mind of God is a perfect idea of every man, but man must work out God's idea for himself. He must work it out by a process of elimination. Before the divine self becomes a supreme self in man, he must destroy all the beliefs which cause suffering in his life. He must enter into the various states of being until he is possessed by them. The secret of increasing the knowledge of spirit within us is stated in Meister Eckhart's words. If the soul were stripped of all her sheaths, God would be discovered all naked to her view, and would give himself to her, withholding nothing. As long as the soul has not thrown off all her veils, however thin, she is unable to see God. I am receptive and obedient to the mind that is seeking to lead me into my perfection. I offer no resistance. Chapter 29. Formulas for re-educating the subconscious mind. We work out our own salvation by establishing ourselves in the reality of being. Heaven is the place of immediate demonstration. Did you ever stop to consider what it would mean to have a consciousness which took no account of evil, to have your thoughts demonstrated instantly, to have the answer to a problem before it appeared, and to be able to speak a word and have it fulfill itself without any effort on your part? These are but a few of the natural consequences of one's ability to think clearly in the mind of God. Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven." What is heaven? Heaven is an enormous extension of life, health, peace, power, and plenty. But do we seek the kingdom? By turning all our energies and faculties towards principles and by increasing our awareness of the Spirit within us, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. Peace, therefore, is a necessary condition by which one enters into a direct experience of God. Truth is within ourselves. It takes no rise from outward things, whatever you may believe. There is an inmost center in us all, where truth abides in fullness, and around wall upon wall the gross flesh hems it in, and to know, rather consists in opening out a way, whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. The whole object of these formulas is to enable man to become in outer manifestation what he is in spirit, and to cause the soul to identify itself with the truth of its being instead of its personal characteristics. The work necessarily must be done in spiritual meditations by slowing down the action of the objective mind. Each one of these statements should be directed to the soul, and should be persisted until it realizes itself in us without any effort on our part. We do not concern ourselves with the senses in this work, nor with the faculties of the human mind, but only with the Christ within us. It is advisable to take each one of the states of being, and abide in it until there is a definite unity in our conception of the words, or until our understanding of them is spiritual or without variance. This may take weeks or months or even years. But the senses have failed. We must be willing to pay the uttermost farthing for reality. Formulas. Speaking to the soul. 1. You, my real self, are spirit. In you there is no matter. 2. You, my real self, are power. In you there is no weakness. 3. You, my real self, are health. In you there is no sickness. 4. You, my real self, are ease. In you there is no dis-ease. 5. You, my real self, are wealth. You are my freedom from poverty. 6. You are my real self, are life. In you there is no death. 7. You, my real self, are knowledge. In you there is no ignorance. 8. You, my real self, are faith. In you there is no fear. 9. You, my real self, are unity. In you there is no strife. 10. You, my real self, are love. In you there is no hate. 11. You, my real self, are truth. In you there is no error. 12. You, my real self, are peace. In you there is no trouble. 13. You, my real self, are God. In you there is no personality. 14. You, my real self, are righteousness. In you there is no wrong. I can accomplish any ambition of my soul, provided I make every other purpose subservient to that ambition. Chapter 30. Correlating the mind. In unity there is strength. Jesus said, Let man cometh unto the Father, but by me. Christ, the perfect state of mind, wherein the individual soul or subconscious mind is perfectly integrated with the mind and will of God. Transcendental philosophy defines this correlated state of mind as the power to know, to be, and to do. When Paul said, Let Christ be formed in you, he meant that we are to make the mind sensitive to good by quickening our response to spirit. Be ye transformed by the renewing of the mind. The one thing that vitally concerns us is spiritual work, is to change the subconscious habits of belief, and the more we quicken our response to spiritual impulses, the less conflict and opposition there will be to the word which we speak. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. As we gradually dispossess our subconscious partner of its evil and false beliefs by magnifying the good and refusing to believe in appearances, it will be taken up into God. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself. He that loseth his life shall find it. If we are really serious about putting on the new man, which is Christ, we shall have to deny the consciousness which now makes up our life. We shall have to renounce the feeling and knowledge of ourselves as flesh, and think of ourselves as Jesus thought of himself. Before Abraham was, I am. The fourfold plan of salvation is renunciation, which is a denial of the self according to appearance. Call no man on earth your father. Recognition, seeing ourselves as we are in spirit and in truth. Realization, feeling the truth of ourselves as the one substance with the Father. Revelation, which is the absolute knowledge of spirit, soul, and body as a divine unity. Then we shall see him as he is. Since it is a law of mind that it assimilates that which it believes and rejects that which it denies, the body will always express the quality or nature of the soul. If the soul is material, the body will be material. If the soul is spiritual, the body will be spiritual. Thus, to experience a new condition in the body, we must have the consciousness which the divine idea represents. When the two minds pull together, cooperate in complete harmony, then the individual is at the point of dominion and authority. He can speak his word with absolute confidence, and it will accomplish whereunto it is sent. The difference between answered and unanswered prayer is a difference between a unified and a divided mind. The wavering man is the one who does not know what he knows nor believes what he says. When he truly believes in a thing, it must come to pass. When the mind is perfectly integrated with our word, then it becomes flesh and dwells among us. Faith is complete only when thought and feeling vibrate in perfect harmony, only when there is no longer anything in the subconscious mind to oppose our word. The method of correlating two minds is as follows. 1. Relax all mental tension in the mind, animosities, fears, jealousies, hatreds, injustice, and negative belief. 2. Forgive and forget all the contradictions, disturbances, and resentments by replacing them with their opposite qualities. 3. Convince your subjective mind that you mean what you say. 4. Be persistent. We are transformed not by our occasional thought, but by our prevailing and habitual states of mind. 5. Be patient. It has taken years to build your imperfect condition, and you must change them a little at a time. In patience ye shall win and possess your soul. 6. Be absolutely ruthless to all divided states of mind. Repeat 100 times a day if necessary. Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shall thou serve. 7. Magnify the good. Look for the good in everyone and everything. Tell your subconscious mind that it can receive only the good. 8. While in meditation, repeat the following statements until the subconscious mind is perfectly synchronized with the conscious mind. A. I am one with my own divine self. Not my personal will, but thy divine will be done in me. If we are persistent in this work, our mental attitude will be transformed. The secret of power is to be in unity with divine mind. Today I will comply with the voice of my clear-thinking self and not be overruled by habit.